You don't feel sick, not really. Just a little more tired than usual. A little more breathless climbing the stairs, a strange tightness in your chest that comes and goes like a whisper you try to ignore. And that's exactly how it begins, not with a dramatic collapse, but with silence. With signals so small, so ordinary, you convince yourself they don't matter. But what if those quiet moments are your heart asking for help before it's too late? There's a reason you clicked on this video. Maybe something inside you doesn't feel quite right. Maybe you've been brushing off symptoms, telling yourself, it's just age, it's just stress, it will pass. But deep down, there's a question you haven't been able to silence. And that's why you're here. Welcome to Healthy Aging with Dr. Emily Carter. This channel isn't about fear, it's about awareness. It's about listening to your body before it has to scream. If you care about your health, your future, or the people who depend on you, then stay with me. And if this message resonates with you at any point, consider subscribing, not for me, but for yourself, as a quiet promise that you will start paying attention to the signals that matter. Because today, we're going to talk about the signs of heart disease that most people overlook, the ones that don't make headlines, the ones that don't feel urgent, until suddenly they are. You see, most people imagine heart disease as a dramatic event, a crushing pain, a sudden fall, an ambulance rushing through traffic. But in reality, for many people, it doesn't happen like that at all. It happens slowly. It happens quietly. It hides behind symptoms so subtle, they blend into your daily life. Like waking up in the morning and not feeling refreshed. You slept, but you still feel heavy, like your body didn't fully recharge. You tell yourself it's normal. After all, you're getting older, right? But what if that persistent fatigue isn't just age? What if your heart is struggling to pump efficiently, leaving your body underfueled, even after a full night's rest? It's not dramatic. It doesn't alarm you. So you ignore it. Then there's that shortness of breath. Not the kind that comes from running, but the kind that appears unexpectedly. Walking up a few steps, carrying groceries, even talking for too long. You pause, catch your breath, and move on. You don't call it a warning. You call it being out of shape. But your heart might be telling a different story. Because when your heart can't pump blood effectively, your lungs feel it first. They struggle to keep up, and you feel it as breathlessness. And still, it doesn't feel serious enough to act on. That's the danger. Heart disease doesn't always knock loudly. Sometimes, it waits for you to keep ignoring it. Then there's discomfort, not pain, just discomfort. A strange pressure in your chest, or maybe in your shoulder, your jaw, your neck, even your back. It doesn't last long. It's not unbearable. So you dismiss it. Maybe it's muscle strain. Maybe you slept wrong. Maybe it's just stress. But here's what most people don't realize. Heart-related discomfort doesn't always feel like pain. It can feel like fullness, tightness, or even mild irritation. And because it's not intense, you don't treat it as important. You wait. You always wait. And waiting is what turns a warning into a crisis. Sometimes, the signs are even more subtle than that. A feeling of dizziness, like the world slightly tilts for a moment. You study yourself, and it passes. You don't think much of it. But your brain depends on a steady flow of oxygen-rich blood. When your heart struggles, even briefly, your brain notices. And it shows up as lightheadedness. Not enough to scare you, just enough to be ignored. Or what about nausea? A strange, uneasy feeling in your stomach, especially when nothing you ate explains it. You might blame your food, your digestion, your routine. But your heart and your digestive system are more connected than you think. When blood flow is compromised, your body reacts in unexpected ways. And again, the symptom feels too ordinary to take seriously. This is how heart disease hides. Not in obvious signs, but in familiar ones. It borrows the language of everyday discomfort. And you, unknowingly, translate it as something harmless. There's also something deeper, something more psychological. A subtle anxiety, a sense that something isn't right, even when you can't explain why. You feel restless, uneasy, maybe even a little on edge. You try to distract yourself. You scroll, you watch TV, you tell yourself it's just stress. But sometimes, Your body senses danger before your mind understands it. That quiet unease can be your nervous system reacting to changes in your heart. But because it doesn't come with clear evidence, you doubt it. You question yourself. And so, you do nothing. You see, the most dangerous signs of heart disease are not the ones that stop you in your tracks. They're the ones that let you keep going. They let you continue your routine, your habits, your life, while something inside you slowly deteriorates. It's like a crack in a wall. At first, it's small, almost invisible, easy to ignore. But over time, it grows. And one day, it's no longer something you can overlook. By then, the damage is harder to reverse. And this is where most people find themselves. Not because they didn't care, but because they didn't know what to look for. Or worse, they knew, but convinced themselves it wasn't serious. I'll check it later. It's probably nothing. I don't want to overreact. These thoughts feel reasonable. They feel logical, but they're also incredibly dangerous. Because heart disease doesn't wait for certainty. It progresses in the background, quietly, steadily, until it demands attention in the most painful way possible. And here's the truth that most people struggle to accept. Your body rarely fails you without warning. It whispers, long before it screams. The question is, are you listening? Or are you doing what most people do? Dismissing the whispers because they don't sound urgent enough? Maybe you've noticed your energy declining, but you've adapted to it. Maybe you've felt discomfort, but you've learned to ignore it. Maybe you've experienced breathlessness, but you've normalized it. And slowly, your definition of normal has changed. That's what aging often does. It teaches you to accept less without questioning why. But healthy aging isn't about accepting decline. It's about recognizing what doesn't belong and having the courage to address it. Because not every symptom is just age. Some are signals, and those signals can save your life if you don't ignore them. There's one more thing, something many people don't talk about. Sleep. Have you ever woken up suddenly at night, feeling short of breath? Or needing to sit up to breathe more comfortably? It feels strange, maybe even a little frightening, but by morning, you forget about it. You move on. But your heart doesn't forget, because nighttime symptoms are often among the earliest warning signs. When you lie down, fluid shifts in your body, and if your heart isn't functioning properly, it struggles. And your body reacts. Quietly, but clearly. But again, because it happens in the dark. Because no one else sees it. Because it passes. You convince yourself it's nothing. And the pattern continues. Ignore, adapt, normalize, repeat. Until one day, your body forces you to stop. And in that moment, everything becomes clear. But it may also become too late. That's why this conversation matters. Not to scare you, but to wake you up. To help you see what you've been overlooking. To remind you that your body is always communicating with you, even when the message is subtle. And maybe, right now, as you're listening, you're starting to connect the dots. The fatigue, the breathlessness, the discomfort, the unease. Things you once dismissed now feel different, more important, more real. And that realization is the first step toward protecting your heart. Because awareness changes everything. It shifts you from passive to proactive, from ignoring to observing, from waiting to acting. And that shift can be the difference between prevention and regret. But there's still more you need to understand, because some of the most overlooked signs are the ones that don't even feel physical. They live in your habits, your routines, your daily choices, and they quietly shape the future of your heart without you even realizing it. There are patterns in your life, so familiar, so routine, you don't even question them anymore. You wake up, maybe a little slower than you used to. You sit for longer periods, telling yourself you've earned the rest. You reach for foods that comfort you, not because you're hungry, but because they feel safe. And none of this feels dangerous. In fact, it feels normal. But heart disease doesn't just live in symptoms. It lives in patterns. Quiet habits, repeated daily, slowly shaping the condition of your heart. You see, one of the most overlooked signs isn't something you feel. It's something you've stopped feeling. Your body's natural rhythm. Think about the last time you felt truly energized, not stimulated by caffeine, but naturally alive. The kind of energy that comes from a body working in harmony. If you have to think too hard about it, that's a sign. Because when your heart and circulation begin to weaken, your baseline changes. You don't notice a sudden drop. Instead, your normal slowly lowers, day by day, year by year, until fatigue becomes your default state. And here's the psychological trap. You adapt. Humans are incredibly good at adapting, even to things that harm them. So instead of asking, why am I always tired? You start saying, this is just how I am now. But that quiet acceptance can cost you years of healthy life. Then there's something even more subtle. A loss of physical confidence. Not fear exactly, but hesitation. You think twice before climbing stairs quickly. You avoid lifting heavier things. You move more cautiously, not because you decided to, but because something inside you shifted. You may not even realize it consciously, but your body knows. When the heart isn't as strong, your entire system becomes more conservative. It tries to protect you, and that protection shows up as limitation. Not dramatic, not obvious, just enough to change your behavior. And over time, your world becomes smaller. Less movement, less activity, less life. And you call it aging. But sometimes, it's not aging. It's warning. There's also a pattern in how you recover. Pay attention to this. After simple activities, how long does it take you to feel normal again? If a short walk leaves you needing extended rest, if mild exertion feels heavier than it should, that's not just fatigue. That's your heart struggling to keep up with demand. Because a healthy heart recovers quickly. It adapts. It responds. But a strained heart lingers. And that lingering is a signal. Then there's something most people overlook completely. Your hands and feet. Cold more often than usual? Slight swelling at the end of the day? A feeling of heaviness in your legs? These are not random. They are circulation clues. Your heart is responsible for delivering blood to every corner of your body. When it weakens, the farthest areas feel it first. Extremities become colder, slower to respond, sometimes slightly swollen. But because it's not painful, because it's not urgent, you ignore it. You adjust. You wear thicker socks. You elevate your feet. You move on. Without asking, why is this happening? And then, there's something even quieter. A change in how you breathe, when no one is watching. Not the obvious shortness of breath, but subtle shifts. You sigh more often. You take deeper breaths unconsciously, as if your body is trying to compensate. You may not notice it, but others might. And even if no one says anything, your body is speaking. Because when oxygen delivery isn't optimal, your system tries to correct it. Silently, automatically, but consistently. And here's where things become deeply personal. Because many people feel these signs and choose silence. They don't talk about it. They don't get checked. They don't want to make it a big deal. There's a quiet fear behind that choice. The fear of hearing something is wrong. So instead, they choose uncertainty. They choose to live in the space between knowing and not knowing, convincing themselves that no diagnosis means no problem. But your heart doesn't work that way. It doesn't wait for your comfort. It responds to reality, not denial. And the longer you delay awareness, the narrower your window for prevention becomes. This is one of the hardest truths to accept. Doing nothing feels safe, but it's often the most dangerous choice. Because heart disease rewards inaction. It thrives in silence, in delay, in avoidance. And yet, the solution doesn't require fear. It requires attention. It requires honesty. It requires a willingness to say, something feels different, and I want to understand why. That single decision can change everything, because early awareness gives you power. Power to adjust your habits. Power to support your heart. Power to reverse patterns before they become permanent damage. But you can't act on what you refuse to see. And that's why so many people miss the window. Not because they didn't have signs, but because the signs didn't look serious enough. Let me ask you something, honestly. How many of these have you experienced? The fatigue, the breathlessness, the discomfort, the subtle changes in your routine. And how many times did you tell yourself, it's nothing, not because you were careless, but because you wanted it to be nothing? That's human. We all do it. We protect ourselves from worry by minimizing what we feel. But when it comes to your heart, minimizing can be dangerous because your heart doesn't need perfection. It just needs your attention early enough. And here's something that might change how you see all of this. Your heart is incredibly resilient. It can adapt, recover, even heal, if you support it in time. But it cannot do that if you ignore it. Think of it like a relationship. If someone you care about keeps trying to communicate with you, and you keep dismissing them, eventually the connection weakens. Your heart is no different. It communicates constantly, through sensation, through energy, through subtle changes in how you feel. And the quality of your life depends on how you respond. Not later, but now. Because later is where most regrets live, and the people who suffer the most are not the ones who never had signs. They're the ones who had signs, but didn't recognize their importance. Right now, you have something incredibly valuable: awareness. And awareness gives you a choice to continue as you are, or to start listening more closely, to dismiss, or to investigate, to wait, or to act. And that choice is shaping your future in ways you may not fully see yet. But we're not done, because there are still a few critical signs, the ones that often appear just before things become serious. The ones most people overlook until they can't anymore. And understanding them could be the moment everything changes for you. There comes a point, quietly, almost imperceptibly, when your body stops asking and starts insisting. Not with chaos, not with drama, but with a deeper kind of signal, the kind you feel in your bones, the kind that lingers a little longer than before. And this is where most people look back and realize the signs were never absent. They were just misunderstood. Because the final warnings before serious heart trouble often don't arrive as something new. They arrive as something familiar that suddenly feels different. That same fatigue, but heavier now. That same breathlessness, but it comes quicker, lasts longer. That same discomfort, but it spreads, it lingers, it refuses to be ignored. And yet, even here, many people hesitate. They wait one more day, one more week, one more, let's see if it goes away. But this stage is not the time for waiting, because when your body repeats a signal, intensifies it, or adds new layers to it, it's no longer a whisper. It's a warning. One of the most overlooked moments happens during stillness. When you're not moving, not exerting, not stressed, just sitting or lying down. And suddenly, you feel your heart. Not emotionally, physically. A strange awareness of its rhythm. Maybe it feels faster than usual, or uneven, or just different. You pause, you notice it, and then you try to distract yourself. You tell yourself it's anxiety. You tell yourself it's nothing. But here's the truth. When your heart starts to draw your attention without reason, it's worth listening, because your body doesn't highlight something unless it needs you to notice. Then there's a moment many people describe, but rarely take seriously. A sudden wave of weakness. Not tiredness, but weakness. Like your body briefly loses its strength, like something inside you drops. It may pass quickly. It may leave you confused more than concerned. But that sensation can be a sign that your heart isn't delivering enough blood in that moment. And even if it lasts seconds, it matters. Because small episodes often come before larger ones. There's also a sign that hides in plain sight. Your tolerance for stress. Not emotional stress alone, but physical and mental pressure combined. Tasks that once felt manageable now feel overwhelming. Your body reacts more intensely, your heart races more easily, recovery takes longer. You might think it's just life becoming harder, but sometimes it's your heart becoming less adaptable. And when adaptability decreases, risk increases. This is how the body prepares you in advance, not with certainty, but with patterns. And if you look closely, the patterns are always there. Another sign, one that people often dismiss completely, is sweating. Unexpected, unexplained sweating. Not from heat, not from exertion, but sudden. especially when combined with discomfort, dizziness, or nausea. It may feel random, but it's not. It's your nervous system reacting to something deeper. And when these signals appear together, even subtly, they should never be ignored, because your body rarely sends multiple signals without reason. And then there is the most dangerous thought of all. It hasn't happened yet, so I'm fine. This belief is what keeps people stuck, because heart disease is not about what has happened. It's about what is developing, silently, gradually, patiently, waiting for the moment when it can no longer be ignored. But here's the part most people don't expect. This is not where the story becomes hopeless. This is where it becomes powerful, because everything you've heard so far, every subtle sign, every quiet warning, is not a sentence. It's an opportunity. Your body is not betraying you. It's trying to protect you, trying to guide you, trying to give you time. And time is the most valuable thing you have when it comes to your heart, because even small changes, made early, can create massive differences later. Listening to your body, taking symptoms seriously, seeking clarity instead of avoiding it. These are not dramatic actions, but they are life-changing ones. And they don't require perfection. They require presence, awareness, respect for the signals you've been given. Imagine, for a moment, a version of your life where you don't ignore what you feel, where you don't normalize discomfort, where you don't wait for something serious to happen before you act. That version of you is not anxious. That version of you is aware. And awareness is not fear. It's control. It's the quiet confidence that you are paying attention, that you are responding, that you are choosing your future instead of leaving it to chance. Because the truth is, heart disease doesn't define you, but your response to its early signs absolutely can. And maybe, right now, this moment, is the moment things change for you. Not in a dramatic way, but in a quiet, powerful decision. To listen more closely, to take your body seriously, to stop dismissing what you feel. Because the difference between those who regret and those who recover often comes down to one simple thing. They listened when it was still quiet. And as you leave this video, I want you to carry one thought with you. Your heart has been speaking to you for a long time. The only question is, will you finally listen?